Hey everyone, I hope you are having a wonderful Monday. Thank you for joining us today for the very first episode of the AIME Women's Mortgage Network Growth Series. I'm Laura Brandeo, and this series is here for you to educate, inspire, and share your progress as we lift each other up to new levels. To kick things off, we have an incredible special guest with us, Dr. Meg Morgan. She is the award-winning author of this fabulous book, Everything is Negotiable: The 5 Tactics to Get What You Want in Life, Love, and Work. As well as she's a college professor, keynote speaker, and a certified executive coach. Dr. Meg, thank you so much for joining us today and for being our very first guest.
I'm so excited to be the first one, and thank you for having me, Laura.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Meg, I read your book, and when I read it, I immediately was just overwhelmed with joy because the word negotiate, automatically in our brains, we think that negotiate automatically it's my salary, right? People automatically think, okay, I need to be strong and I need to ask for what I want when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly what you speak about or you write about. That's one piece, but it's more than that. It's actually more of negotiating the full spectrum of the life that you want and getting the most out of it. And you've also researched, why is it that women struggle with negotiation and asking for what they want? So please, let's start there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so it's funny because when we were publishing the book, the publishers were a little worried about the word negotiate because it really was like alarming women, but I was pretty adamant that I wanted that word and then to be able to reframe that word. Because I think when we hear negotiate, we think conflict, fight, winner, loser. And the point I make in the book is it's really just about leveraging your worth for something that you value. Sometimes that's money, but sometimes, and a lot of other times, it's, self-respect or help at home or work-life balance or whatever the case may be. So I wanted to really make that word mean more than just money or fighting. And so kind of to go to your question of why we don't do that, what I found through the women that I've worked with, which at this point has been, hundreds of women negotiating their salary or negotiating whatever the case may be, there's really 3 reasons why women don't negotiate. And I'll tell you the 3, and then we can kind of unpack them together. The first is they truly don't know if they can, right? They're looking for almost permission. Like the question I get is, can I ask? Who's going to give me permission to ask? The second is, even if they could, they don't know what they'd ask for, right? Even if they got up the nerve to do it, they're not sure what they would ask, whether it's salary or help or otherwise. And then the final thing, which I think is so incredibly relatable and something that I certainly struggle with, which is, how will I be perceived? What will people think of me if I ask for more help or more money or whatever is?
Right.
So those are really basic, very human, very women traits of kind of asking permission, needing to know that they're not going to be perceived negatively.
Right.
In all shapes. Yeah.
Okay, so knowing if you can ask. All right, let's take that one. Let's kind of chop this up into pieces. So knowing if you can, who are we looking for permission from? Who is it that we're like, is it because, generally speaking, from a feminine side, do we always try to think of others first? And so it's kind of one of these situations of, well, if I ask, then I'm not putting someone else in front, whether it's my family, whether it's my team, whether it's whoever. Yeah. Is it because the first thing we have to come to grips with is, well, if you take care of yourself, you're a better you to be able to be the best wife, best sister, best team member, best boss, best everything. Yeah. So is that like where it starts?
I think it starts with this almost societal pressure to be, and I hate this word, but like good girls, right? We don't want to rock a boat.
Right.
We don't want to ask. We don't want to upset anybody. When we think negotiate, we think fight and winner and loser. And perhaps you're more of a team player, or perhaps you're more grounded in, being selfless. But I think a lot of what happens too is just like, we don't really see when we're frustrated by something. Like, we kind of assume what we have is what we have. And so knowing whether or not you can ask is really being able to identify what your issue is. And when I say issue, maybe that's opportunity, maybe however you want to phrase that. But if there's a pain point you can point to as to what's bothering you. And so what's funny about when you mentioned the book, a lot of people would come to me wanting to negotiate their salary. And when we'd get into it, it was never about money, right? It was that they weren't feeling valued at work, or they weren't feeling heard at work, or they didn't feel relevant. And so all of these things mix in with what we think we're asking for versus what we really need. And I think it's a little bit of, I'm putting others before me, but it's also, I really don't actually have clarity on what it is that I need, because I'm really not listening to myself.
Right. So we're kind of thinking, okay, the solution to this is I will feel better if I achieve this.
Yeah.
But that's not really the root cause as to why I feel I have this desire to obtain something else.
Right.
Okay. So how do you recommend that we actually get to the root cause of whether it is I want to feel that I'm more taken seriously. I want to be listened to. I want to be respected. I want to be put on a pedestal, or I just want support or help, whether it's at home or at work. So how do you identify that?
Well, I think what happens, and I'll share my own story. I was working on my doctoral program, and I had just had a baby, and I was sort of staying at home and then teaching at nights and working. And in my mind, me being able to do that all was the goal. Like, me being able to handle that, cook meals, be great at everything. And I had to really get, where was that model coming from? And it wasn't coming from really internally, right? It was coming from somebody else, looking around at other moms, looking around at other, doctoral students or professors, and trying to kind of make myself what they were. And so I think getting clarity is sort of releasing what you see everyone else doing and really focusing on what you needed. And so the big negotiation that I did, and I talk about in the book, is like saying to my husband, okay, these are the 5 things that I need you to do to make this work for me. And obviously his answer was yes. But until I kind of told him what the problem was, he was just sort of trying things to make it better and not sort of making me more mad. And so it's really kind of rejecting what other people are doing or seeing or saying, and really focusing on what is it that you need in this moment. And that could be little and it could be big.
Right, right. And you brought up such a good point, Dr. Meg, and you actually tell a really hysterical story that resonated with me, where this whole, well, I'm not on exactly the same timeline as, my friends had kids earlier, or my sister became an entrepreneur, at the age of 25, and I'm 30, and oh my God, what's the matter with me? I'm behind. Yeah. Or your story, you told the story about when you had your first child, you're sitting there trying to make your own baby food, and you're trying to do all these crazy things, and you realized you were spending more time trying to do that than actually spending time with the baby. Yeah. But in our minds, we've all done this. Yeah. We've all compared, well, wait a minute, this person at this point in their life is here, and I must be falling behind, or I must not be doing something right because I'm not exactly the same spot. So speak about that. I think this is a very important part.
I love looking back at past Meg and just being like, oh, bless her heart. I had a student reach out last week that was really panicked about getting all of her classes in so she could graduate next spring. Mm-hmm. And she had just moved into a new house and she was really stressed. And I just wrote back and I said, can you just take one more semester and be like, can you negotiate that with yourself? And I mean, she wrote back and said, I don't know why I hadn't thought of that. Like, for some reason, I had set goal for myself. I'd seen other people doing it. For some reason, I thought that was locked in. And again, kind of needs this permission for me to say, if you need to take an extra semester so you feel good right now. And it's that kind of idea of, we look at what we have and we can't possibly move any of the pieces. And the pieces are all movable. The timeline is all movable. There are very, very few real hard deadlines in life, right? I mean, there's like taxes, but then, I mean, I can't think of another one besides.
It actually moved though. Look at Dr. Meg. We have
that is moving.
The taxes move.
So I think you just release the idea that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what it's supposed to look like, right? And then you start being really creative in your ability to negotiate.
Right. So I think this is a really good example, right? So listen, we all, before you have children, everything is kind of all organized, and then a baby comes in and it's all thrown out the window, right? Because we all know the best negotiator, which is how you kind of came down, are the children. Our kids are the best negotiators. And I think we all have figured out how to do that. But over time, especially as women, especially as professional women, we forget that sometimes, because you're right. We're trying to keep those pieces in the puzzle. And when something moves out of place, we're like, uh-oh, now what? So tell us, what do we do in our mindset to be able to let that go and be able to realize that, like you said, there's not a lot of things that are written in cement or stone. We're usually able to move around.
Yeah. So the book is based in large part on watching my daughters negotiate against me. And one of the things that I've noticed they do is they do not care what I think of them. And look, I'd love to give myself credit and say it's because they feel unconditional love, but I also think there's just part of being a child where you're not governed by the external perceptions of what, your boss might think or your colleagues might think, and how freeing that is for them to just argue or negotiate for their needs getting met above all things. And if anything, I feel like that makes me love them more, right? Like they can just say, this is what I need. Parenting has become easier as they're able to communicate exactly what they need. And if we could maintain that in adulthood, but we lose that as women because we get all these messages that we should talk less and shrink and not upset people and not be perceived, because we do perceive women more negatively, or we think we'll perceive women more negatively when they are outspoken or they are assertive. And so I think the key is in removing that concern over how people are going to perceive you. And now that's a journey. But
I was going to say that's a very tall order. That is not an easy one.
One thing to kind of keep in mind in that vein is we truly have no way of knowing what other people think of us or how they perceive us. And even if you ask them, I mean, they could still lie or their minds could change. So trying to track that down is a fool's errand. And when you realize that, right, when you realize that even if you could get everyone's approval, could you maintain it? I mean, that's exhausting.
Nope.
Instead, to know this is what I want and this is what I need, you'll naturally have people that appreciate that, and you'll naturally have people that won't. And that, I mean, even knowing that, I think on a objective level is helpful, or has been helpful to me.
So why do you think we struggle with that as women? Why do you think we struggle with this, worried about what people think about us more than the guys do? Why do you think that is?
Oh, more than the guys? I don't think that I think it kind of comes down to how much women, especially in the workplace, have to be caretakers. I mean, there's all kinds of studies about women even being asked to take notes in meetings, being asked to plan birthday parties, being asked to stand up and close the door in a conference room. Like, we kind of do a lot of the caretaking, and that translates into the managing of other people's emotions. So if we start getting in this space of managing other people's emotions, then we're naturally going to try to manage how they perceive us. And that becomes, I think, a big part of what stops us then from focusing on ourselves and asking for what we need.
Right. I guess that makes total sense. Now, you speak about organizing your mental closet.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So you know, toss, donate, keep. And probably while you're quarantined, you've done some closet cleanup. So I think like at the end of the night, we all have these moments of replaying some conversation that happened. And we're like, did I make that person mad? Did I come off as stupid? Did I say the right thing? And so I just decided at one point that we could organize our brains like we organize our closets. And what we toss are the things that we fear. What we donate are the things that we hear. And what we keep are the things that are clear. So in the first category, you want to toss out anything. And when I say toss out, like these don't belong in your brain anymore. Anything that is an assumption or a prediction about what people might be saying about you. They may have thought you were rude. They may have thought you were stupid, but you have no proof, right? Other than your own kind of fear spinning up. So we get rid of that. The second is you're going to donate what you hear. And this is where women really struggle because what you hear is going to be rumors and gossip. So I had early in my career, someone come into my office and close the door and said, I just want you to know that I like you. But I've heard, right? That's how all good conversations are.
Yeah.
But I've heard that Janet has a really big problem with you. And I kind of like hooked onto that. I was like suddenly really worried about Janet. But this was like coming secondhand, right? Like I wasn't speaking to Janet. And so it really wasn't beneficial for me to sit there and try to figure out ways I could convince Janet to like me. And so I always suggest donating back, like in that moment to just say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Have her come talk to me, right? Like don't accept the hearsay. Like don't spin there with the person. Like, oh, tell me more. Because what happens then is Janet, you know, a few things could happen. One, the person who came to me will just not say anything to Janet. The person will go to Janet and Janet will say, I was just blowing steam. I'm not going to say anything to Meg. I'm over it. Or Janet will say, I'm going to go tell Meg exactly what I think of her. And then we've moved into the only category that we can spend any time worrying about, which is the keep category, which is that which is clear. That which people come and tell you directly and clearly. And once that kind of became my model for what I was going to spend my time on, was only that stuff that was coming to me, that was clear, that was kind, right? Like I don't mind criticism, but don't be horribly rude. I could manage. That was something I could manage. And it changed the way people came to me. It changed the way students came to me, right? I used to allow students to come to me and say, another student doesn't like the class, right? Or another student's upset. It really started to funnel in comments directly to me that I could deal with. And I spend, I won't say no time, but a lot less time worried about the, rumors, the perception, the things that I could kind of drum up in my head at night if I let myself.
Right. I think that's amazing advice. Absolutely. And that's something that that probably takes making it a habit.
Yes.
I can't even imagine that, today everybody that heard this is going to be like, okay, I'm going to toss, donate, and keep. Right. It's like, okay, let me work with this. But I would think that once it becomes a habit, number one, it's clearing out your mind and it's having you focus on what you can directly do something with, because we deal as women, we definitely deal with a lot of self-talk. Yes. We definitely have this, this little voice that most of the time is making us second guess ourselves. Right. And I don't care if you have a doctorate. I don't care if you're the president of a lender. I don't care who you are. We all suffer from that. And that's one of the reasons why, I love to have people like you on, Dr. Meg, to be able to share that we all have experienced this. Okay, so next thing I want to hear is, okay, if we're going to give some advice to the ladies out there. Now, remember, we've got hardworking loan originators. We have women that own their own mortgage broker shops. We've got powerhouse ladies watching and listening right now. What would you recommend that they can start to do in order to negotiate the next few weeks. And how can they do that? And we also have your contact information up there, and I'm going to tell them some info about your book shortly. So what advice can you give to them?
I think when we think about negotiation, don't think so huge, right? Don't think like you have to reset every term that you've ever done. But I would think about tiny things that could be helpful to you, and I would start there, right? Because again, like you said, this is habit. Is there something small, whether it's negotiating, delegating, that could be helpful?
Yeah.
The next is, I would just assume, as the book says, everything is negotiable, right? So get rid of the idea that there's any sort of block on the time, or the ability to ask, or that you only get to ask once, right? Like don't assume I'm going to ask for this one thing. And the third thing I'll say, because I see this a lot, is you deserve to ask for this, right? So what happens a lot with women, whether it's salary or otherwise, is they apologize themselves into an ask. I am so sorry to ask this of you, but I need some help, right? No, you're just going to start strong. This is what I need. And what I coach women with is, it is incredibly hard to say no to someone's clarity. If you come into a room and you're like, I'm very stressed, fix it.
Oh.
I don't know how to respond to that. But if you come in and say, this is the one thing that I need from you today, or this is the one thing that I need, that's really easy to say yes to. So I would, again, start small. Everything's negotiable. And then just get very, very clear on what that ask might be.
That is wonderful advice. And I love even that you started with delegating, because I know that's definitely a struggle for most of us. And I think that's great advice, as right now the mortgage business is doing very, very well, and we have lots of families to help. And so that's good advice for all of our women out there to know, whether it's a loan officer assistant, or whether it's hiring another processor, or whatever can help you, a marketing person to assist. Any of those things, those are great recommendations. All right. So Dr. Meg, you have been wonderful. Thank you. Our Women's Mortgage Network Growth Series. You have been amazing. Her information right there is at megmyersmorgan.com, is a wonderful website, and she's on all social media. So, of course, that's another way to follow her. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So, ladies, Dr. Meg has been amazing, and I want to let you know what we're looking to do in this growth series, okay? So as we go forward, after each guest presenter, we are going to do a challenge with the group. This upcoming challenge is going to be about negotiation. Now, Dr. Meg mentioned this. This is all about, what do you want to change within your work or personal life that you can negotiate how to make a maneuver. So what we want to do in this first challenge is we want to have you think about, what would you like to negotiate over the next couple of weeks as we come into the end of the month? We know everybody's crushing it out there. Your goals are being surpassed. We want you to think about, what do I need to change? And don't make it this broad, random thing. Really think about, down to the core, what is something that, whether it's getting help, whether it's expanding your mind, and don't be afraid to ask, because whatever life you want out there, it's yours to take. So this first challenge, we want you to email me, Laura@afrwholesale.com. Tell me what you're going to negotiate over the next couple of weeks. And please include your physical address, because I'm actually personally going to mail you a copy of Dr. Meg's book. Then the way that this will work is, on June 8th, we're going to select 3 Women's Mortgage Network members that took the challenge, and we're going to have you guys on. And we're going to hear about some of how it worked, what you thought of it, what you accomplished. And that's what this series is going to be. We're going to have industry leaders. We're going to have Women's Mortgage Network members with panel discussions, and we'll have outside presenters. So each week, we're going to alternate different ways of bringing value and inspiring you, educating you, and having you guys come together so we can spotlight you, because it's all going to be about this group and how we're going to continue to grow, expand, have you guys just become the leaders in our industry and continue to support you and spotlight you as you shine. Okay? So send me those emails. Let me know. Yep, Laura at afrwholesale.com. Tell me what you're negotiating for the rest of this month. And then we're going to pick 3. We're going to, we're going to mail out the book, and we're going to select 3 people so that we can bring you on June 8th. Now, next week is Memorial Day, so wishing everybody a happy Memorial Day. And then we'll be back on June 1st with another presenter, Larry Levine. He actually wrote a book called Selling from the Heart, and it's all about relational sales. And I think you'll really be inspired and learn a few things and love that also. So the next time we're actually going to have the live show will be on June 1st. And please, send me those negotiations because I want to present you guys with the book and have 3 people on the 8th. Thank you so much for joining us for this first episode. I look forward to building out this series, spotlighting you guys, and wishing you a wonderful rest of your Monday. Take care, everybody.